It is 11 here. It might be some other time in your own time zone. Thanks everybody for joining this week's Microsoft 365 platform community call. My name is Sébastien Levert. I'm a PM on the Microsoft Graph team, and I'm happy today to host this community call. We are November 30th, 2021. We have people in conference room, which is a good sign of recovery. I'm happy to see you guys over there. Let's see how it goes with the together mode later. Our agenda today, we're going to have tons of people in this call, and I can't wait to hear from all of them. First, we're going to have our latest updates and news on the Microsoft 365 platform, where we're going to cover some of the news, some of the latest programs we have around the entire platform we have. Afterwards, we're going to take our now famous group picture time with Together Mode. So Vesa will take a nice screen grab of us waving all together if you want to join. And afterwards, we're going to go through the demos. 3 demos today, so very packed agenda. I will try to not spend too much time on the updates so we can have all these demo presenters take all the time they should. First, we're going to have Arpita, that's going to talk about the Microsoft 365 application certification program that we have here in the Microsoft 365 platform. Then Paolo and Vesa, live from Dusseldorf, will be talking about how to consume a multi-tenant API within Viva Connections adaptive cards extensions. And finally, Maisa and Vincent will be introducing us to one of our latest SDK that we delivered on the Microsoft Graph, which is the Microsoft Graph Go SDK. Then afterwards, if time permits, we're going to have the Q&A. So let's jump onto some of the news that we have for this week. First, a couple of resources that we believe are useful for all of us. First, our Microsoft 365 developer videos, where you can find all the Microsoft-driven educational presentation videos on our YouTube channels. We also have the same thing from the community videos, parts of the calls we're doing, either on the PNP call, on the platform call, the SharePoint framework, and Viva Connections call, all of them in a single repository on YouTube. So really, really cool thing to do, especially at lunchtime, like bite-sized videos. Have a look at them. We're open source at heart. We have tons of different repos you can have a look to see how we're contributing, how we're helping the community. All of our repos are right there. We also have different sample galleries where you can find examples of work that people like you are already building and have contributed to these samples, and you can get inspiration from these sample galleries. A little bit more on that later. And finally, you want to find all of this under a single roof? Well, aka.ms/m365pnp. That's where all of our open source initiatives and samples are located. If you haven't done it already, have a look at our Microsoft 365 developer program, where we're literally giving you access to a free E5 developer tenant and a bunch of other assets that you can get to help you with developing in your Microsoft 365 solution. So aka.ms/m365/dev program. And one of the really, really cool things now is that it's instant. It takes seconds to get a full tenant with data, with conversation in Teams, with emails, and all of that. So go see that program. Super useful, especially if you're starting with Microsoft 365 development. Learn. We want to learn more about stuff in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So you can get started with our different Learn modules, where you can get all the capabilities of the M365 platform with training modules. So you can go on the link that is on the screen right now, and now we even have the latest modules with the Viva Connections training. We're going to even hear a little bit about that module today later with Vesa and Paolo. Samples. Not only we have different sites with samples, but we also have a single pane of glass where you can get access to all the samples that have been created by the community, where you can find all of them, filter, search, find by author, where you can go to aka.ms/m365/samples, and the sample solution gallery will give you access to everything you can think of, from list formatting to web parts to Power Platform to team samples, anything that is related to the M365 platform, you can find it there. It's awesome. It's super useful, and it's really quick to get access to some of these features. I even seen lately capabilities where you can download just a simple sample from the repos and not the entire repo. So thanks, Hugo, for adding that to that platform. Even more, sharing is caring. David, do you want to walk us through the sharing is caring?
Absolutely. Thank you, Seb. Well, for those that are new to the community, it's important, as Seb had mentioned, to know that we're an open source community, and that means using and or contributing back to the community. But we know there's hurdles along the way, things like interfacing with GitHub or understanding how are you going to present some of the demos that you would like to present, the things that you are contributing back. The Sharing is Caring initiative is a program that is here to provide you hands-on, safe space, inclusive guidance on utilizing all of our resources and contributing back. So that means walking you through your first pull request if you've never done a contribution, giving you some interface to how you can set up your SPF workstation, and much, much more. You can see a whole host of upcoming sessions. Our most popular is the newest Power Platform samples, first-time contributor, and the ever-growing AMAs, which one is today with our fabulous host, Seb. He's going to be the guest of honor in both. And so we will have that immediately following this call. You just go to the link that you see in your chat and find that session. You're going to hit join more, and it'll bring you directly to the call for those who didn't already pre-register. Right after the call, I'll include a link as well after the call. Again, these are free, safe space opportunities for you to collaborate and learn together, hands-on, not recorded, so you can bring any and all questions. Invite you to any and all of them. Please come. We'd love to collaborate with you. aka.ms/sharing is caring. Seb, back to you.
Thank you so much, David. Can't wait for today's AMA, by the way. Some of the resources we also have is our Microsoft 365 Dev podcast, hosted by Jeremy Fake and Paul Schaeflein. It's great to see lots of weekly updates around the Microsoft 365 platform by either Microsoft PM shipping new capabilities, community members teaching on how they're using or learning about new capabilities, and even just random news. Definitely the M365 podcast is the podcast to subscribe to. I've been subscribed to that podcast for way too long, probably like since 2017 or 2018, and I'm still learning on a daily basis, even though sometimes I even ship some of these products. So it's great just to keep updated on the platform. Another podcast / webcast / amazing resource is our PNP Weekly, where you're going to get the latest news and announcements from Microsoft in the community, where we have a format of interviewing some of the community members or internal Microsoft employees, where you can learn about what the community has done in the last week. So PNP Weekly, always available on aka.ms/PNP Weekly, and you can also listen to the PNP Weekly on Podbean right there. So join the fun, guys. One last set of news. It's been a quiet week around news. We can definitely see that the holiday season is going to happen fairly soon. So we see that like the decrease in the number of news, but there has been tons of new capabilities shipped to Microsoft Teams in November 2021. So I invite you all to go and see what's new in Microsoft Teams, see what the Teams team has to say from a feature or platform capabilities. Go over there, and it's going to be great to get the latest. Also, the latest Microsoft 365 community update is available, where we highlight the latest and greatest of everything around the community, contributors, organizations, samples, repos, and all of that. Feel free, go there. I think it's amazing to see how inclusive and diverse this community is, and I think this super long article is a great example of the richness and the depth of this community. So have a look, learn about the community, and we're super happy to have you being part of it. And now it's our optional picture time. So if you feel like you want to get onto camera, feel free to open your camera. I think my camera is broken today, so I will not be able to be like Seb. Yeah, I'm like, oh, it might. No, it's not gonna work.
One second.
I'm gonna be. Yeah, I'm gonna be stuck. I don't know what's happening. My camera. I'm gonna have to be off camera for this one. I'm so sorry.
I'm trying to organize this. 1 second. 1 second. My computer. Hopefully this is. Oh, there we go. We're heading to the together mode, and let's see if we can pull this off because we're all not on the. Oh, let's see if I can share my screen. We're getting there.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, we can see it. We can see it.
Now
well, it's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
Okay. So, but now we still need to get the together mode.
All right.
So
everybody should see
excellent. Now we're
themselves.
getting that.
Thank you, David.
And it's recording.
Awesome.
Are we on the screen there?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yep.
Are we on the screen? Oh, I can see you. There we go.
Double
Sharing a seat.
Exactly.
All right.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you, David. Thanks for saving that day. So really good. Cool.
Thanks, David. Let me take over the screen for 1 or 2 minutes, and then afterwards, I'm gonna hand it over to our first presenter. Just as a reminder, we're gonna have Arpita, then afterwards Paolo and Vesa, and finally Maisa and Vincent on 3 super interesting topics. So Arpita, floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Greetings. Wherever you are, I'm Arpita. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft Azure Identity Organization, and I primarily work on the application platform security and focusing on a lot of products or features that focus on the authenticity and trustworthiness of the apps in the ecosystem. So as part of my presentation today, I'm going to talk about M365 app compliance and how those experiences will turn in the Azure AD. I believe I have around 15 to 20 minutes, so I'll quickly run through this, but meanwhile, if you have any questions, please feel free to pause me and ask your questions. Let's make it more interactive. My goal here is to provide an overview of M365 App Compliance Program, and I believe most here would be aware of that program, so I'll not spend a lot of time on that. And then, again, some introduction and value of publisher verification, probably a repeat for most folks here, but just a brush up. And then Microsoft 365 application service certification experiences within Azure AD. So let's dive in. The goals of M365 application compliance program. For those who are not aware of that, Microsoft has introduced the M365 app compliance program very recently, like 1.5 years ago. It's nascent, but really picking up the steam very, very fast. And in our effort towards building a very, very secure and trustworthy apps ecosystem, we're putting all the weight behind to make sure whatever we can to enable developers as well as the entire ecosystem and platform experiences to come together and build this default trustworthy ecosystem, right? So the goals of the app compliance program are for customers, we want to build a secure and compliant apps ecosystem that they can trust and adopt the apps with very, very low friction and have high productivity.
Thank you so much, Arpita. This is an amazing program that I think all of you on the call should definitely have a look at. We've seen partners and customers definitely leveraging it, and we've seen adoption going like skyrocket with these programs. So thanks for sharing. Super interesting. Now we will be transitioning to Vesa and Paulo live from Dusseldorf around consuming a multi-tenant API within Viva Connection ACEs.
Thank you, Seb, and thank you for the certification details. That's really cool as well. And that kind of relates on what we're talking in here, because it relates on the partner offerings and the stories on customers using things. So pretty recently, we did a reference solution related on consuming a multi-tenant APIs within the Microsoft Viva Connection adaptive card extensions. And we wanted to have a 15-minute story related on what is available. And this is a reference solution, a kind of a blueprint, which is demonstrating how to make these things happen. But let's have a quick look on a few slides first on why would you do this. So first of all, just a recap, of course. The Microsoft 365 opportunity is huge for the partner ecosystem. We have more than 250 million monthly active users in Microsoft Teams, and we have more than 200 million monthly active users in SharePoint Online. Of course, a lot of the people are overlapping between these things because SharePoint is powering the content within the Microsoft Teams. But related on Viva Connection is exposed in the Teams, but it's powered by SharePoint behind the scenes, and it's powered by the SharePoint framework. Now, in this particular case, we basically are going to show the steps and requirements of building a ISV partner offering for Viva Connections. So what do we actually need to do here? Having a new Viva card exposed in the Viva Connection, either in a desktop or in a mobile. So you'll see the mobile experience in the slide. But technically, as part of this Viva Connection journey and before the GA, we worked with quite a few partners on helping them to build their offerings in the app source for Viva Connections. And as part of those that work, we learned about the challenges and we learned about the questions what the partners were having. And we realized that we certainly need to have a better guidance and a reference solution available for the following partners to adapt the Viva Connection story. And what do we need to do here? Just to kind of explain what the partner needs to be doing here. So first of all, Viva Connection experiences are being built with using SharePoint framework. Again, a bit of an interesting terminology to call it still a SharePoint framework, but we'll hopefully get the name changed pretty soon. Marketing is in charge of running that. Now, you use the SharePoint framework to create those Viva cards and application customizers and web parts, and actually the story relates in all of them. The sample solution focuses on cards, but in the same way, if you would be using or creating a partner web part for the Viva Connection desktop, and you would be hitting a multi-tenant API, you would actually have the similar requirements. Now, quite typically, a partner API offering is based on some sort of an API or a service being hosted in the cloud. So the card or the web part or an application customizer hits that API to surface relevant information for the customer or for the tenant or for the user. And that's basically the setup which we have available within the solution. So deployment of this one, we have actually a ready-to-use sample available, actually hosted live on the internet, which is pretty cool. So you can actually step through the steps in the location. We'll share the location and guidance and all of that, and we'll show some assets in a second. But we need to have an API which needs to be consented in a customer tenant. So the customer needs to be aware of this multi-tenant API so that they can start using it. And then as the solution, the SharePoint framework solution is getting installed, the solution API permissions needs to be approved so that the APIs can be called in that particular tenant. But I guess the easiest way to understand what are the bits and pieces is to actually show the solution. So let's jump on that one, and Paolo is going to take lead on that.
Okay, yes, thank you, Vesa. So first of all, let's start having a look at the solution in action so that we can play with it and we can understand the overall goal from a functional point of view. And the idea is to provide an order management solution with a UI for end users based on an adaptive card extension. And in the back end, we have an Azure function which will provide just a fake list of orders for the sake of simplicity, but which is, as Vesa said, already hosted on Azure for you. So you can play with this solution without any need to host anything on your side, but you can just play with it and learn from it. Of course, if you want, you will also find in the source code of the solution the Azure function so that you can take inspiration from it. So now let me show you the adaptive card extension in action. This is my adaptive card to manage the orders. I can show you that in the settings of this adaptive card, we configure the URL of a backend service, which will be the one we are going to use in order to show the functionalities. And if I will go to the preview mode of my workbench, we can see that we can easily click on this button to see a list of orders, a fake list of orders, as I said, because this is just for the sake of providing an example. And here we can see what kind of experience the end users can have in adaptive card extensions. So for example, we can expand an item, we can have a dynamic UI. I can say that as a person in charge of managing the orders, I can, for example, say that this order is now under processing and I can update it. So imagine this kind of experience from a mobile device where the user in a storage, for example, can start processing an order received by the system. And you can also insert a new order. Okay, new order, and you can use another card to insert a new order in the system. Just for the sake of making an example, it will be the order number 11 or 11/2021 or whatever else, and this will be my customer ID, a fake one for sure, and the order will be inserted today with a specific status, which can be any of these values. When I will click on insert order, we will see that right now we have 10 orders in the system, but by clicking on insert order, everything was good. And by closing this view, we can see that now we have 11 orders in the system. So this is just to give you an idea of what you can do and what kind of solutions you can build using the adaptive card extensions, and specifically thinking about the mobile experience. Now, how did we build this solution? We have the adaptive card by itself, and we can really briefly, without digging into the code, see that we have a SharePoint framework solution built with all the technology landscape that we already know if we are SharePoint framework developer. This is just an extension built with SharePoint framework. I mean, just a class built with TypeScript and all the beauty and the capabilities that we have in SharePoint framework. And then we can build all the UI elements of this solution relying on the adaptive card JSON syntax, which is one of the killer features, in my opinion, of the adaptive card extensions. Because in order to define the UI, you simply need to rely on a well-known and broadly adopted technology like the adaptive card JSON. Here, for example, you can briefly see the JSON we are using to render the list of orders. While if you want to add a new order, you can rely on another JSON definition of the UI, still based on the adaptive card JSON syntax. So really powerful, really reusable technology. This is the front end of our solution, and we are relying in the back end on an Azure function. So we also have, thanks to the capabilities that we have in SharePoint Framework, the possibility to use a backend API secured with Azure Active Directory. And that's why in our solution, we have in Azure Active Directory an application registered as a multi-tenant app, which is provided to any tenant willing to consume our solution. In fact, if you have a look at this application, we can easily see that it is configured to support authentication in multiple organizations, meaning that it targets multiple tenants. How can you use it? Well, in order to have this application available, registered, or known in your target tenant, you will simply need to go through a consent flow, exactly the one we were talking about in the previous demo, actually. So the users willing to use this solution in their tenant will simply need to go through a registration flow called consent flow, and will have the application registered in their tenant. And then we provide a backend infrastructure based on an Azure function hosted on Azure, which will provide the actual backend functionality to manage the list of orders and to provide all the create, read, update, delete, and query functionalities for the list of orders. So the key components are the front end built with the adaptive card extensions, the backend built with the Azure functions, and in the middle, we have Azure Active Directory to secure the communication. Now, the really interesting part of the story, in my opinion, is that we can leverage all the knowledge that we already have whenever we build a SharePoint framework solution, but now we can also extend Microsoft Viva Connections. And that's why, for example, in the solution, in the SharePoint framework solution, we can simply rely on the context of SharePoint, because at the very end, an adaptive card extension is nothing more than yet another kind of component that we can create with SharePoint Framework. And we can rely on the SharePoint Framework context to create a new instance of a client object, an AAD HTTP client object, to consume a specific API. Which one? Well, the one that we registered as a multi-tenant application in our Azure Active Directory. So this ID is precisely the one we have in Azure AD for our multi-tenant application right here. So here we are just matching that application unique ID in order to get back a client object, which will make it possible for us to easily consume the backend API. And API, I said, it is an Azure function one. So if we look at the function sections, we can see that we have we need to refresh this guy. Or I can even switch here to show you the Visual Studio side of the story. We have functions like functions to get the list of orders or function to get a specific order, and generally speaking, all the create, read, update capabilities. Well, on the SharePoint framework side, in the order service that we are using, we simply have the same functionalities in TypeScript on the client side. So when we want to get the list of orders, we will target the URL of the API, followed by the API/orders endpoint. And it works almost like when we use the Microsoft Graph from SharePoint Framework, but now we are using a custom API that we are consuming to provide additional functionalities. The key point here is that you will have to register and enable the application in the target tenant. And that's why we decided to also share with all of you, and let me switch to my browser, on GitHub, the solution itself. So here in the SPFX reference scenarios repository on GitHub, you can find the whole source code of the solution under the ACPMP Contoso orders sample solution. And in there, you will find the source code, as I said, both of the SPFX adaptive card extension and of the function app, together with a script to do the provisioning in your own tenant, and of course, a set of documents, of MD documents, that you can refer to in order to do the minimal path to awesome. So if you simply want to play with it, well, you can come here, you can execute the PowerShell script, providing the name of your target tenant, and the solution will be registered and available in your tenant, meaning that you will have the constant flow applied to your tenant, and you will find the SharePoint Framework solution automatically installed in your app catalog and available in your Viva Connections dashboard. Or if you rather want to dig into how the solution works, you can go through all of the other documents. So you can go through the introduction, and you can see a brief introduction of the solution, as well as you can see how we implemented the adaptive card extension with a step-by-step guidance about how we created the order service and how you can consume the backend API from the SharePoint Framework point of view, as well as how we implemented the backend API using an Azure function, and specifically also taking care of the authorization part of the story, which is a really important part of the implementation, because here you can learn and see not only how to consume an API, but also how to secure the backend API with Azure AD and with open authorization in order to have an end-to-end, fully functional sample solution to take inspiration from.
Thank you, Paolo. And of course, we're working on the final location of all of these assets and documentation and all of that. So most likely we'll surface these sooner or later in the docs.microsoft.com. But for now, they're in GitHub and in this location. And we'll put that one in the video notes and in the blog post related on the recording. So everybody can access them already. But thank you, Paolo, on that one.
Thank you.
And I think we have one more demo to go today.
Awesome. Thanks, Vesa. Well, next on the stage today will be Maisa, if she can make it. I know she is under a power outage right now, so it might be hard, but I know Vincent is there to help us achieve our goals, to see more about the Go SDK. Vince, take it over.
Exactly. Thank you for having us today. So you should be able to see me and hear me as well. And as you said, Maisa won't be able to join us because they don't have power in her district anymore for now. So let's get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for tuning in today. I'm Vincent, a developer on the Microsoft Graph SDK team. I should have been joined by Mesa, program manager on our team as well, but unfortunately she's having power issues. And today we're here to talk about our new preview Microsoft Graph Go SDK. And we'll see how it works and what value it provides to you. If you don't write any Go code, don't run away. Just stay here, listen in, and see if you have any Go developer friends so you can tell them about this new awesome SDK. We don't have a lot of slides, so I'll go through this quickly. Why would you use this new Go SDK, or what does it provide for you? Well, it has a few key benefits that you can use as a Go developer. First off, the authentication. It is based off Azure Identity and brings support for multiple authentication flows like the authorization code, the browser interactive, the client credentials or the client certificate flow. Also, it can pull the authentication from the environment variables, from the device code flow, which I'm going to be showing in a couple of minutes, a username password, or even a managed identity if you're running off an Azure service like Azure Web Apps or Azure Functions and so on and so forth. So all of that is provided and supported from day one, thanks to Azure Identity, which our SDK relies on, and it allows you to support any scenario you might be building applications for, whether you're on the backend service or on a desktop application or on a mobile application. Next up, we do provide, thanks to the new Microsoft Graph Go SDK, a Fluent style API that I'm going to be demonstrating in a couple of minutes. And we provide that API for both the V1 endpoints as well as the beta endpoints. And both those SDKs, the V1 SDK and the beta SDK, can be used together in the same application. So that allows you to use the beta SDK for only the things that are only available in beta, and so this way you're on the edge and trying the new endpoints and trying the new APIs that are offered by the different product teams, and then you can revert to the V1 SDK that talks to the V1 APIs for all your quote-unquote production work that needs to be more reliable. It comes with models for all the different entities we have on Microsoft Graph, and it also handles for you, of course, serialization and deserialization of the payloads for you automatically. So those are some of the other benefits you get from the Microsoft Graph Go SDK. On top of all of that, we also have a middleware pipeline that handles cross-cutting concerns like, well, if there's an error, should we retry? Should we back off exponentially if Microsoft Graph is busy, and all those kind of things. So that's automatically handled for you. You don't need to implement that yourself anymore. We also have a redirect handler because for some API calls, your client is actually being redirected to another service like SharePoint, OneDrive, and so on and so forth. Well, we do have a handler that's available from day one. And of course, we're planning to add more handlers as we move through the preview and as we move towards GA to provide a better experience to the SDK users. And with that, that's pretty much all the slides we have for now. So let's jump in the demo. So here I already run my Go application and I'm using the device code flow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the application and then I'm going to show you the code. Here we go. So I'm going to go to microsoft.com/device login, paste in the code, select my account. Click OK. That's the same consent experience that Arpita was telling us about in the first demo. Of course, I'm not verified because I'm not a trustworthy developer at this point. And that's it. Our application is authenticated. So what our application will do, it will list out the first 10 messages, and it will also send an email. And we'll get back to that from the code. But before we jump into the code, usually when you want to get started with a new SDK or with a new technology, well, you're looking for documentation. Another great thing we put together as a team, thanks to Jason and other team members, is all the get started section for the SDKs in the public documentation here has been updated to include all the Go instructions. So how do you install the Go SDK, for example, or how do you create a Go client with the authentication set up for you, for example. And also for each and every API endpoint, we now have Go snippets and Go samples available for you, which you can also see in the Graph Explorer. So if you go to aka.ms/ge, you will go to the Graph Explorer that you've probably seen many times at this point, and you can go there to execute different requests against Microsoft Graph. And if you run the query, and then if you go over to the response tab, the response section, click on the code snippet tab, and then on the Go tab, you now have the equivalent code for that specific API call that is available. So if I change, for example, to go to /me/messages to get the messages for the current user, same thing, I will get the Go code snippet that is the reflection of that specific API call. So now, if we jump into the code of my application to show you how it's built, the first thing, of course, is the imports. I will have to import Azure Identity here, as well as the Microsoft Graph SDK and a few submodules under the Microsoft Graph SDK to get things like what are the messages, how do you send an email, and all those different things. Then if we move on to that section here, I'm actually creating a client all the way through here. So the first few lines here are actually using Azure Identity to set up a device code credential. This is what we've just seen earlier, where the application will say, hey, go to that URL, paste that code, go through the authentication and then consent, and then come back to the applications once you're done. This is great for devices or application surfaces that do not have great user input experience, like IoT devices, like console applications like I'm just showing you, or wearables or stuff like that. Of course, as I already said, we support a number of different credentials, like the interactive browser one, the authorization code, and so on and so forth, to allow you to authenticate almost the same way across multiple scenarios and use the SDK the exact same way. The next step here is to create a new identity authentication provider. So this is where we pass it the credentials which we've just built, as well as the scopes we're going to be using. You don't have to do that, but it's always better. Here I'm using gradual consent, where I'll say for this specific piece of code, I just need mail.read and mail.send. So this is what I'm going to be requesting. Of course, you can also do it the other way around, where you register all your scopes on your application registration and don't provide anything here. And what's going to happen is that you'll have the consent go through all the scopes that are registered within the application directly instead. Once I have that, I can build my request adapter that will translate my Fluent API request into actual HTTP request using the authentication provider we've just built to authenticate the request. And I can feed that into my Graph service client. And the Graph service client itself will be the entry point for the Fluent API. So now, if we move to actual API calls, once we've set up everything here, we do have one first thing we're doing here. We're doing client.me to get the current user who's authenticated, .messages to get their messages, .get to list all the messages that are available. But if we look above a little bit, I'm also providing a filter here to say I only want the messages that start with major update. For example, I don't want the other messages. I just want those messages that start with that. And this is how we get started. So automatically, the Go SDK will provide you types for the query parameters and also the ability to set the request headers and a few other things. And you can use that when you execute the request to kind of narrow down your request to get the exact specific things that you'd like to get. When I get that response, what I'm doing is I'm just iterating through the messages to display their receive date, time, and their subject, as I've shown in the application. The next step and the next thing we're doing, we're actually posting a new message. So here I'm using the models that are generated by, are available through the Go SDK, and I'm creating a new message. I'm setting the subject, and then within the message, I'm setting the body of a message with some kind of content. We support enumerations, we support the different values here. And then on the message, I'm also setting the recipients here, where we are setting the new email address for the recipient, which we're putting into a collection for the message. And once we've done all of that, we put the body again in the request options like we've done earlier for the filter query. Instead, here we're setting the body instead. And using the Fluent API, I'm doing client.me.sendMail to send a new email, .post with the options, which do contain my body. And that's it. Then we return the application and we're done. So if we go over the browser here, and if we look at the inbox, you'll see that I've received a non-delivery reply. This is because the email I'm sending, the email address I'm sending the email to does not exist, but this is fine. The API call worked. I was able to send an email. The service actually got the email, sent it to the distant server, which said, hey, I don't have that email address, and replied to us. But basically, the whole loop is completed here. And with that, I know we have a couple of minutes left, so I'll go back to the slides really quickly to talk about a few things and give you a few useful links. So if you want to get started, you should go over to our public documentation, of course, because you'll find how to get started and all the snippets, but you can also go to our GitHub repositories. So github.com/Microsoft Graph/MSGraph-SDK-Go or MSGraph-Beta-SDK-Go for the Beta SDK. Again, those can be used together in an application if you need to. We also have a blog post that goes through most of the demonstration that I've put together here and explain all the other benefits of the Go SDK we haven't talked about today. This is available at aka.ms/preview-gov1. And of course, if you have questions, well, you can always reach out on the repositories for the Go SDK, but you can also go to Microsoft Q&A at aka.ms/askgraphsdk, all attached. And with that, thank you very much from both Mesa, who could not be with us today because of missing electricity, and myself. Thank you very much. Back to you, Seb.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vince. Was great to see some Go love happening in some of our SDKs. Well, we are almost at time. Wanted to remind you or get you up to speed with some of our developer community calls that we have, where we have tons of different calls happening, either monthly, weekly, bi-weekly. Lots of links, lots of things. The one link you need to remember is the aka.ms/m365pmp, where you're going to be able to get access to all of these calls in a way better format here. So you can add them to your calendar and join when it suits you. Finally, the recording of this call will be available in 24 hours on our Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel. Please follow us on Twitter, where we're sharing lots of great news, lots of great new projects that we're working on. And our next Microsoft 365 platform call will be on December 7th. All our community calls are also available in the M365 PNP aka.ms link. So feel free to join in. Feel free to go see there. We're at the end of our session today. Thanks, everybody. Thanks the community for being so active, so inclusive, and also so great with us. It's great to see people start to bond together in these conferences. So great to see our life getting a little bit back to normal. Everybody, thank you so much, and see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Seb. Bye-bye.